Okay, thank you. Thanks. So today I'd like to share with you my very geeky passion for looking up the origins of the phrases that we use every day, specifically the phrases that we use in software development and how their origins might surprise you a little bit. So let's dive right in. This is example code from the Wix serverless Python framework. If you have a function and you want it to be called throughout intervals throughout the week, what you do is you decorate it with this attribute called schedule cron, and you need to supply a valid cron syntax string to say when it will be called. So for example, if the function is called smoke and you want it to be called at 420, this is how you would do it. So the question is, why do we call this the cron syntax? Well, this is because of Chronos, which is in Greek mythology is the personification of time itself. And this is where we get words like synchronously. So if we're already talking about Python, let's talk about where the name of this language comes from. I assume that the author of the language wanted to reference the species of snake directly, but actually he named it after the Monty Python comedy group from the UK, because he was a fan of them. And actually, I guess we owe a lot of respect to Monty Python, because they're in charge of another very popular term that even non-technical people use, which is spam, to refer to junk email. So first, what is spam in the broader context? This is this type of spiced ham product, which is sold in other countries. And, but why did it come to represent junk email? This is because of a sketch by the Monty Python group, where there's this coffee shop where for every dish you would order, they're trying to get you to order it with spam. So this very aggressive marketing came to represent the annoying marketing emails that you get as spam. All right, moving on. I'm sure you're all familiar with this phrase, but I'm not sure if you ever thought about why it's called that. So if we're waiting for a computer to load or for an operating system to finish initializing, we're saying we're waiting for the bootstrap process, or we're waiting for the system to boot up. So why does this type of shoe and the strap that we use to tie the shoe, how does that relate to a system starting? Well, this is because of a story and an expression, an idiom, where if you want to get started doing something, you need to pull yourself up by your own bootstrap. You're the one who's in charge of starting yourself, and this is why we use this to represent the computer loading as well. So far, is there anybody here who already knew all of these origins? Okay, I see a few hands, so let's try to maybe find one you don't know. So another one, this is an example from JavaScript, but obviously in all languages we have the concept of logging frameworks, where we make a reference that some event has happened so we can review it later. So why did log, which means just a piece of wood, how did that come to represent that? Well, to understand that, first, this is not unique to the world of programming. In many other fields, you have the concept of a logbook. For example, this is my personal diving logbook as a diver. So for every dive I make, I write down the date, the location, and also what I saw on that day. And this comes from a ship's logbook, where the captain would record mainly the course and the speed of the voyage of the ship. But this still doesn't answer the question, why log specifically? How does that relate to a piece of wood? Well, this is because the speed of a ship was measured with a piece of wood attached to a rope with knots on it. This is why, till today, we still use knots to represent the unit of the speed of a ship. And they would throw this log overboard and see how many knots there are on it, and measure the progress of the log and make a record in a log book. And this is why all the way to today, we're talking about logging and users log into a system. And let's talk about another one. So as you might be familiar, computer systems around the world synchronize their clocks, no matter where they are geographically, to what we call UTC, Universal Time Coordinated, and this is the time in Greenwich, England. So this basically means that this is the time at the 0 longitude. There's no positive or negative offset of hours that we need to add. If we represent this as JSON, for example, one of the ways we can do it is using this format, and then you would have this Z at the end, which represents that this is the time in Greenwich, this is UTC. But why Z? So this is because the military chose to represent each time zone with a letter of the alphabet, because, as I'm sure you're all familiar with this, I don't need to tell you, the number of time zones equals the number of letters in the alphabet, right? Well, wrong, because we have one more letter in the alphabet than we do have time zones, so the letter J is just completely ignored. But then the letter that was used for the zero longitude in Greenwich, England, they chose Z based on what I've read, because it also stands for zero. But if you say this over a radio connection, you want to say that the plane departs at 1300, you wouldn't say 1300 Z, you would say the 1300 Zulu, because in phonetic alphabet, Zulu represents Z, just like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, etc. And finally, I'm from the Fed Guild. What we do all day is just move pixels around. That's our only job. So why do we call this a pixel? This is because a pixel is the most basic picture element. And if you take the beginning of these two words, you get, well, actually, I guess you get pickle. But I guess that's not a very good name. And this is why we modify it slightly to pixel. There are many other interesting origins of terms that we use in software engineering. So maybe if you want, come geek out with me later about this, or maybe I'll come back next year to give another short talk like this. Thank you.